What's up? Welcome to the Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Today we tell you which of our favorite Vikings prospects totally flopped at the Combine.
What's going on? Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Sources telling us Aaron Jones likely to be released, but his sombrero wants to stick around on a team-friendly deal.
I'm Tyler Fornitz of A-to-Z Sports, and I've officially replaced Arif Hassan as the tallest member of the Squad Show.
Skol! It's the Viking Squad. Everything Minnesota Vikings every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Viking Squad Show starts now.
What is going on? And happy Monday. Viking Squad Show streaming on Locked On Vikings, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're so pumped that you've joined us today. And let's welcome in another new face, Tyler Forness. Welcome to the Squad Show family. Appreciate you being here. Vikings beat writer, A-to-Z Sports. He's at The Real Forno, and he is real. Yet he's in the flesh. He's with us today, and we can't wait to hear his take on Vikings free agency, combine, plus where we start, the departures of Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave. Want to remind you that we're brought to you today by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Farewell, Aaron Jones. Farewell, Javon Hargrave. It's not official yet, but they are on their way out per sources, per reports. They will either be traded or released. Now, Forno, let's give you the first word on this show. I have yet to see an example where a clear cap casualty is said to be either released or traded. I've yet to see a trade come together. That almost always means that a release is imminent. They're grasping at straws. They're trying to find some value there. I don't know if they're going to find it. Vikings looking to clear about $18 million in cap space. Two big moves to kind of kick off the offseason wheel of motion.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dichotomy kind of having the conversation about these two players. Running back is obviously becoming a little bit more important with today's game and how versatile these players can be. And Jones really epitomizes that. The problem is he gets a boo-boo every 5 plays and he has to come off the field. And that becomes a real issue. Durability is just, in my opinion, is the reason why he is not coming back. But when you mention the trade, the one thing that really intrigues me here is Javon Hargrave. This is a bad defensive tackle class. You have Jonathan Franklin Myers and then a bunch of nothing. And then in the NFL draft, you have Caleb Banks, Peter Woods, Cade McDonald, and then it's a bunch of major question marks. It's not a strong class there either. So would the Vikings be able to entice somebody to get a guy like Hargrave, who at his core is a really good DPR? He's not going to be a great run defender, but if you ask him to do a bunch of slanting and stunting, he's capable enough. Just don't ask him to do gap and a half or 2 gapping. He's going to get crushed. But can you get somebody like the Bengals, who are just desperate for any kind of juice on the interior, to give you like a 5th or a 6th, and then you save an extra $4 million in cap space? That's where it's intriguing to me. I don't think anybody's trading for Jones in that contract. But with where defensive tackle is, I think there's a realistic chance Hargrave might get something back.
Yeah, what a good first litmus test kind of for Rob Brzezinski in the GM chair with the GM cap on. You're totally right, Sam. Like more times than not, 9 out of 10 doesn't really happen. You don't see a trade come to fruition because, you know, most of these teams are like, well, why wouldn't we just wait instead of giving up draft capital? But even if you can get a late day 3 pick, even if it's a future day 3 pick, it's just free draft picks at that point, knowing you're going to move on from them. And you're right, Tyler, not a great defensive tackle class. If there was a guy that still kind of got the name brand value, if you will, and obviously plays the kind of premier, you know, position, getting after the quarterback from the interior, definitely that would be very enticing. But kind of right on cue, I thought, Sam, just starting with Hargraves, I feel like that was kind of always a no-brainer. You almost knew they had to cut bait with him or Allen, just given how inflated those contracts were. And I just thought Hargrave they got far less of their money's worth last year in 2025 for how much they were paying him. Not saying Allen necessarily lived up to the billing either, but I think there's still some more meat on the bone with Jonathan Allen, especially in this Brian Flores defense. Plus, you got the emergence of Jalen Redmond, I think makes things just a little bit more digestible, a little bit more manageable as well. You got the groupings of the young guys, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, who, obviously you hope he can take a step up in the second year as well. LDR back there as well. But saying all that, by no means do I think they shouldn't target a defensive lineman with one of these draft picks, but it's a manageable group back there between kind of the young talent and then Jonathan Allen, your veterans. So he clears about $10 million, I want to say. That just kind of gets the train off the tracks if you're Rob Brzezinski, can start chipping away. So no big surprise there. And then just lastly, as far as Aaron Jones goes, I'm totally with you, Tyler, man. I think this one hurts and stings a little bit more just because he turned into such a fan favorite. He was always talked about as kind of this, leader in the locker room, on and off the field, this bright personality that everybody loved to be around. So from like the human element side of things, I think that one stings a little bit more. But, having said that, obviously it's a business, 31 going on 32, a running back constantly dinged up, always playing less than 100%. Every week he's on the injury report. It's just less than ideal when you're talking about a 7, 8, almost $9 million cap number. So no arguing he's going to be missed for sure. That pass catching ability, the pass blocking especially, instantly becomes a major need. I think you think about, no Aaron Jones, no CJ Ham, all of a sudden, that's a lot of games. That's a lot of experience that's just gone in the blink of one offseason. But from a building, team building standpoint, I should say, everybody knows you can find capable guys to kind of plug in, whether it's the draft or free agency, just because there's always this major surplus, this major pipeline of young talent coming in at running back year after year. So I'd imagine, with all these draft picks, they'll probably take a stab at running back at some point on draft weekend.
Yeah, I'm cool with the plan for sure at defensive tackle. I think that Jalen Redmond made this possible. And at times, Jalen Redmond usurped Javon Hargrave last year in the rotation. So you bring back, and I think they're bringing back Jonathan Allen. I don't think he's going to be a casualty with 17 million dead to save 6 and then have to replace that. No, they're bringing back Jonathan Allen alongside Jalen Redmond, alongside Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. Don't forget about my boy Elijah Williams, who is going to get in the mix this year. I'm cool with that group. I can roll with that. LDR, maybe Taki back. There's some depth there. At running back, now you roll with Jordan Mason, who's had a pretty durable career thus far, missed a little time in San Francisco, but I don't hate giving him 15 snaps a game. I don't hate the prospect of Xavier Scott getting worked into the mix, and I also don't hate whatever rookie that they bring in, possibly offering them an opportunity as well. I think you run into a situation where, okay, if Mason goes down, do we have a clear workhorse, a clear number one? And then are we suddenly grasping at straws to fill these reps? Maybe a little bit. But it was always a luxury to begin with to have a Jones and a Mason. And you just can't have an Aaron Jones, who I loved when he was healthy. You can't have a back that is not going to reliably be available in second halves of games and second halves of seasons. And that was happening at far too frequent of a clip. Even though, like Forno, like there were games where you could tell KOC built the whole script around him. Like he was a get in rhythm guy. He was great for a young quarterback. And they leaned on him early in games a lot just to try to get JJ McCarthy comfortable. But it felt like Dalvin Cook at the end of his career. You never knew if you were going to have him in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have the running back position, one of the whole ideas in today's day and age is you want a 1A and 1B, because you're not going to give a Sean Alexander type 30 carries in a game and just think, oh, this is just normal. We know too much about the health of these players and how dynamic they are. But in reality, they get beat up more than pretty much any position in the National Football League because of the type of hits that they're taking and the fact that they're running into 300-pound behemoths on the interior. So Jones continuing to get beat up. He's not even suffering major injuries. It's, oh, I have a bruised hip. Oh, I have a slight hamstring pull. And it's stuff that, like you said, it's keeping him out of like third and fourth quarters. You can't consistently count on that player. Now, if you were to get like a Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson, and then you have Jones with him, you can feel a little bit more comfortable because he's your 1B, not your 1A. So moving forward, you have to find somebody who has a little bit more durability that you can trust to give 15 to 20 touches in a game and not have to come out for any kind of extended period of time, even if it is just a quarter, because as we saw this past year with the 9-8 season where they were this close to winning like 4 more games, that makes a big difference.
I just want to throw this in as well. You mentioned Jalen Redmond kind of makes that Javon Hargrave's, release or eventual trade. We'll see what happens when the dust settles, but kind of a little bit more digestible, Sam. On a smaller scale, I wonder how much a guy like Xavier Scott kind of plays into the coach's decision as well. He added a little bit of spark last year, scored that touchdown out of the backfield as a pass-catching running back overseas. I think it was the Browns game, might have been the Steelers game, but a little bit of spark back there as that second-year running back. Feels like they like his potential. They like his ceiling. Obviously, a long way to go as far as replacing those big shoes of Aaron Jones, especially on third down. But, you add whether it's a free agent guy like fling out a Kenneth Gainwell, whoever it may be, or a draft pick, you add that guy in with Jordan Mason, and then you got Xavier Scott entering year 3, probably likely to take on a bigger role as well. Maybe you pick up a UDFA fullback and you roll the dice on those young guys. Hopefully you can get them up to speed quickly. I think that's one of the most important things. And then probably the most important thing is, can one of them, again, emerge as that true third down guy that you feel good about leaving in during pass blocking, pass protection, then also catching the ball out of the backfield. But yeah, he's going to be missed for sure. He was a good one. But I think from a business move, from a team building standpoint, I don't think a lot of us are that surprised.
No, these were always the 2 most logical dominoes to fall pretty quickly. We talked weeks ago about other starting caliber running backs you could target if you wanted to reestablish the 1A, 1B approach. I was pounding the table to Javonte Williams, and then within 24 hours, he was re-signed. So that's off the table. Our guy, Reggie Wilson, he tossed out Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Rico Dowdle. I think that the Breece Hall connection is there because you brought in an O-line coach that was his run game coordinator with the New York Jets. But I still think that's about, that's like the 5th luxury, that if you can clear up enough space to have the ability to go sign a high-ender in free agency, I'd be pretty surprised. I'd probably lean more on the name that Inman mentioned, Forno, like a Kenneth Gainwell, a change of pace back who we saw him crush the Vikings over in Ireland.
It's going to be really interesting how they want to approach this free agency, because we got reports from the combine that the Vikings are probably going to hold off a little bit on free agency and be a little bit more frugal. But the one thing that's interesting about some of these contracts and how Brzezinski likes to structure them, you could sign a guy like an ETN, a Hall, a Kenneth Walker, and only count like $4 million on the cap in 2026. So you could make a big splash and not necessarily have it crush you, because you could still give them a $15 million signing bonus. You spread it out over 5 years, and then all of a sudden it's a $4.1 million cap hit. Incredibly palatable even for this situation. So the one interesting thing here is O'Connell has not shown a willingness to sustain the run game. You look back at some of the intricate data from last year, they had a really good run game, 15th in EPA per rush, 8th in success rate, but there was not hey, we're just going to continue and sustain it throughout the course of a game. He gets kind of carried away and just wants to throw the football. Some of it's game script, some of it's JJ McCarthy or Carson Wentz canning plays at the line of scrimmage. But if they were to be able to make it a focus, that would really take things to a different level with how this offense operates. But that investment is really going to tell us how seriously they're going to take it. Are they going to make the big swing, or are they going to, for lack of a better term, settle for a player like Gainwell, who's a great piece to have, but I don't know if I want him a part of my rotation. I want him as more of a specialty kind of back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point there. Just real quick to this comment, any idea asking price on Breece Hall? Early rumors saying the Jets are more than prepared to franchise tag him if they can't get a deal done. So he may be off the table, but again, kind of a wait and see approach. A lot of rumor mill stuff going on as we kind of near the start of free agency in the new league year.
Yeah, PFF's pretty spot on the projections. They nailed Javonte Williams. Breece Hall, they've got at 3 years, $12.3 million per year. That's pretty steep for a team that is still 20. They're going to be the Vikings are going to be $25 million in the hole after Jones and Hargrave are released. I think a lot of that gets cleared up in restructures. But again, we're not talking about clearing it up. We're talking about clearing up and adding space, because as we'll talk about as the show goes on, there are more needs to address. We're going to be getting into cornerback free agency preview, but next maybe we'll revisit running back, because there was one particular back that we've talked about on this show who did not have a great combine. We get into that when we return on the Squad Show. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. Early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and it is March, folks. You know what that means. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Build any college hoops parlay you want, whether it's rivalry games, we got conference tournaments starting up, ranked matchups, whatever you want. Yeah, the world is your oyster. Mix spreads, the totals, the player props. Match how you see the slate playing out. Apply the profit boost. Bump up the potential payout. Win big. Go safe, go bold. Ride with the team you've been following all season. I'm telling you to check out the St. Thomas Tommies in the Summit League tournament. 2 seed. Good chance they'll be dancing. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Squad Show rolling on. Make sure you're checking out Luke Braun, daily 30-minute dose of Locked On Vikings. All right, I know both of you guys digested the combine. You probably, how many hours of combine did you watch, Inman? I know you were laid up. You had a tooth injury. Was it 8 hours? Was it 12 hours? Was it 16 hours? I mean, how much combine was watched at the Inman house?
Yeah, I started out hot, man. Those first couple days, love the position groups. By the end, Saturday was the big one everybody's waiting for. Quarterback, tight end, running back, receiver. Those are kind of all bumped up in Friday and Saturday. But Sunday kind of cooled off a little bit on the offensive lineman. But all in all, yeah, probably 6, 7, 8 hours. And then you throw some podcasts in there, some Todd McShay, some Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Yeah, We're clocked in, Sam. It's full on digesting the draft season. We officially have begun.
Forno, I'm going to roll through what our prospects of the day on this show have been and how they performed, but I want to hear a couple of your favorites for the Vikings specifically that worked out at the combine, or in some cases didn't work out and just did an interview.
Yeah, there's some really interesting guys, and I put together every year the All Forno team, which is just the only really requirements are I just love you. And the one guy that has stood out to me more than anybody else is Avion Terrell from Clemson. And doing my mock draft tracker, I've got 198 mock drafts tracked so far since the beginning of the year. He's been the number one recipient with 64 selections. I just love everything about him. He's only 5'11". He's just under 190 pounds. But he's got every ounce of dog that you could ever ask for in a cornerback. He's got the perfect mentality. He will throw you around. He will punch you. He will attack the football. And he's got really good instincts to be able to make some of those plays. But I was really disappointed he didn't test because, man, Stuart Delane didn't test. Jermon McCoy is still somehow recovering from a torn ACL he suffered in December of 2024. It was really an opportunity for him to take a massive step forward and show, hey, I'm this draft's number one cornerback, which he is for me. But he did not take that step. He did not choose to work out. And for me, it was a big missed opportunity because if he would have ran in the low 4.4s, if he would have jumped really well, and he looked really good in the positional drills, he could have stood out and potentially made himself a few $1 million, but he chose to sit out. And you know what? That's kind of prerogative nowadays. This turf at Lucas Oil Stadium has not exactly been consistent for the combine over the past few years. And it's something that many people have discussed, especially those who go to the combine. But he was my biggest loser, probably just because he didn't do anything to really separate himself when he had the opportunity. But I think the biggest winner of the weekend that should be getting more discussion is Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a target unless the Vikings just absolutely either fall in love with him or somehow trade TJ Hawkinson, which I don't think he's going anywhere. But he ran a 4.39 at 245 pounds. and he jumped out of the gym. We're talking Kyle Pitts level freaky stuff from an athleticism perspective. And he's going to attack the seam. He's got really good route running prowess, and he's got the ability to continue to grow in that area. And more importantly, he's a willing blocker. He's not NFL strong yet, but you can work on strength. You can't fix mentality. So I thought he really stood out in a major way as a positive, because when you test like that, that's rare from a tight end perspective.
Imagine showing up to the combine. You're a tight end. You jump through the roof, like you said, 43.5-inch vert, and you're not even the best tester at your position. Eli Stowers from Vandy. A couple freaky athletic, testing performances. And really, I mean, we could sift through every position. The safeties absolutely destroyed, it felt like. I'm with you. I just want to circle back to Terrell because he's really starting to grow on me quite a bit. Love the NFL genes as well. Brother, obviously, A.J. Terrell from Atlanta. Great cornerback for the last 4 or 5 years. There's another name, though, I feel like when I comb through these mocks, and I'm sure a lot of people agree, another name that's kind of tied to the Vikings as well, the kid from South Carolina, Cisse, who the little film that I've watched, the 3 games, more of an athlete, sure, but not necessarily the kind of pure cover skills, I guess, that Terrell brings to the table. And I was also kind of disappointed because everything I heard about Cisse from South Carolina was that he was this freak athlete, and that's really where he's going to make a lot of money, right? That's really his bread and butter. And he gets to Indy, and I believe he only did the broad and the vert, and both those numbers were great. But to show up to Indy, and I'm sure a lot of these guys who didn't test in Indy are going to test at their pro days. That's usually how it works. But knowing that was kind of your bread and butter, what you're known for, this freak athlete, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see his 40-time, 10-yard split, 3-cone, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's play a game. I'm going to give you guys 3 names. Tell me Viking or not a Viking, as in you're going after him or you're not touching him with a 10.5-foot pole. Traden Stukes, safety, 6-year guy at Arizona because he had an ACL in 2024, but want to squash the concerns about the ACL. He ran a 4.33. Was great last season for Arizona. Old, maybe less upside. Traden Stukes, 4-0, Viking?
100% a Viking. The one thing that's really intriguing about how the Vikings have drafted their defensive backs, under Brian Flores, they've only drafted 2 cornerbacks, Mekhi Blackman and Kyrie Jackson, both of whom were 24. And the one thing with the defensive backfield is you need guys who are smart and have a high level of football IQ right off the bat. And I think that's one of the reasons, it's my hypothesis at least, why they haven't targeted defensive back earlier on, because some of these high upside athletes, they're coming in at 21 and they don't necessarily have the football acumen yet to be able to assimilate into this defense right away. Stukes is going to have that. And he is also a member of the All-4-0 team. This dude's incredible. He can play man coverage in the slot. He's got great range, might have the best ball skills of anybody in the class. I don't care that he's 24. At this point, if you're 24 and you play like that, coming off, like he played all year coming off an ACL he suffered in week 4 the year prior, it didn't look like he was hurt at all. He had good fluidity. I think he still needs to loosen up the hips a little bit because his feet were kind of doing most of the work in some of the transitions, but you can trust him in the slot. You can trust him over the top. Like a versatile piece like that is a valuable one.
Prospect of the day. Spoiler alert. Prospect of the day. Stu, out of all the 300 prospects, eligible guys, Sam, you plucked my prospect of the day today. I pretty much could echo everything that you just kind of ripped off, Tyler. I think the first thing that kind of jumped out, though, is what do we know about Brian Flores? He's not one who's very prone or kind of proactive, exactly what you said, giving a lot of young, raw, inexperienced guys a lot of playing time in his system. Hey, if it's down to Dwight McGlothern or Fabian Monroe, who got the reps last year? Fabian Monroe. He's going with the veteran over the young guy. So you got to have some feathers in your cap. And you got to have some experience to play in this Brian Flores defense. You mentioned it, Sam. 6-year guy, 52 games under his belt. He's 23 now. He'll be 24 by the time the season starts. I just feel like when it comes to Brian, I'm trying to get in ahead of KOC and Brian Flores when I think of some of these prospects. I just feel like this is a win now defense. We already know that. They're not in rebuild mode. They're not trying to sit around for 2, 3, 4 years and hope a guy develops. They're looking for guys that can step in right away and contribute. And Stukes, whether you like him at strong safety, a little bit more in the box or nickel corner, he's long, 6'1", 190, 32-inch arms. He's lanky, but he just impacts the game in a lot of different ways. So again, safety, he played some free safety a few years ago. But nickel cornerback, I think, is where he could really thrive. Great instincts as a blitzer, 12 career tackles for loss. He knows how to read and dissect, get in the backfield. 6 pass deflections and 4 picks. 4-0. You mentioned the ball skills. I'm right with you, dude. Maybe the best ball skills of any corner, any safety, I guess, in this class. And you go back and watch all 4 interceptions from 2025. There's no like tip passes up, just fell right in my lap. There's no fluky picks in there.
No
all
Emmanuel
4 of
Forbes
them.
here.
Yeah, right. Very, very good callback. All 4 of those picks, though, if you go back and watch them, really great ball skills, really get, great play recognition. I guess 7 career picks, 29 career pass breaks. He is just kind of this magnet to the ball. He just always gets his hands on the ball. And if he doesn't get his hands on the ball, he just seems to make life very difficult for the pass catcher and quarterback as well. I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, last year he had a 29% completion rate against him, which is outstanding. 30.4 passer rating against him as well, too. So what's crazy, 4-0, tell me if you agree, one of the kind of questions around him, the lateral movement a little bit, stuff like that, but it felt like the athleticism people just didn't know. That was kind of one of the question marks going into Indy. What kind of athlete are you? He gets to Indy, and you guys already mentioned it, but puts up one of the best defensive back days of anyone. 4.33, that's 99th percentile. 130 broad, that's 90th percentile, and then a 38-inch vert, that's 80th percentile. So all of a sudden, I see those numbers. I'm starting to think, I had this guy pegged as a nickel corner kind of box safety with all that speed. Maybe Flores or defensive coordinator who's willing to get creative sees him in also maybe a little bit more of a deep kind of free safety role as well, at least more than you originally thought. So a lot of versatility, a lot of athleticism. Also love the story too. Former walk-on turns team captain. And if you read any quotes or you listen to any like press conferences from Arizona or that Arizona football team, whether it's coaches or teammates, everybody said he was the heart and soul of the defense. So great character, athlete, versatility, ball skills. I am all for it. The problem is, we all sit there and do the PFF mock draft, right? I was getting him at 97. I don't know if he gets out of the second round.
No way.
I'm not sure. So is he a guy that you got to pick at 49? You got to trade back from 18 and scoop up an extra second or third? I don't know, but his stock is shooting through the roof right now, and I absolutely love it.
Well, the Thieneman stock also shooting up, maybe beyond your reach at 18, so you need a backup plan. Let me give you the belated prospect of the day gong for having that at the ready. Lucan, well done. Good work. I have 2 more names for you. Deeper cut, center. We talked about Jake Slaughter on this show. I would nominate a guy with a great name, Sam Hecht from Kansas State. He ran, I think, the same time as Jake Slaughter. He's 6'4", 300 pounds, 2-year starter for Kansas State, didn't allow a sack. Any intel 4-0 on Sam Hecht from Kansas State? I like it.
I'll have to talk to a friend of mine, Kevin Fielder, who covered the Wildcats in Manhattan for a year. And the one thing that really intrigues me about him is the Kansas State run game is incredibly similar to what we see at North Dakota State. It's diverse. They run a little bit of everything. They do gap. They do zone. They do a lot of like option. He pulls. It's a very complex run game. And being that it's a complex run game, you have to have a lot of intelligence. So he showed that. I didn't realize he was 6'4". Like watching him play, I thought he was like Jason Kelsey sized because of the way he kind of gets leverage and he can torque defensive linemen. So the fact that he's that tall is a really nice surprise for me because I haven't gotten to his film, 100% yet. But look, when it comes to center, I'm not of the belief that it needs to be a major priority for the Vikings. I think if you don't take one, I think you're fine with Brandel or Juergens, especially with the way Juergens played at the end of last year. But if you take one, just make sure it's a guy that you believe can be a guy long-term. And I think he fits the bill. Slaughter fits the bill. If you're okay with Connor Lew's ACL tear, he fits that bill too. Logan Jones is an intriguing name. Bryce Foster from Kansas would be a later pick. And then if Parker Brailsford can ever put on any weight and not play at 275 pounds, he's a guy I really like as well. But if you trust that this guy can grow and develop and be a long-term guy, like we got Matt Burke and John Sullivan around 6. Like you can take a center later and develop that player, which is what they thought they were going to be able to do with Juergens. So I would be all for it at the right price. I don't know if I want to take a center on day 2. Personally, I have so many other positions that I have a higher need threshold for, but this would be a guy I'd be okay with.
Yeah. Well, you got to find out.
According to PFF, just real quick, a 2-year start, as you mentioned, but 0 sacks allowed. And obviously you mentioned the run blocking capabilities, pass blocking as well. I'm very intrigued about this center class. I'm not necessarily saying I'm excited about this center class. I'm just intrigued because, you got a clump of guys like Connor Lew who got hurt, but was probably going to be the number 1 center coming in and probably still is, I guess, from Auburn. Yeah. Still intrigued with Jake Slaughter, not flashy, kind of vanilla, but just really solid at everything. The Iowa guy, Logan Jones, seems to improve his stock in Indy a little bit more, got his face out there, and then obviously Sam Hecht as well. So I'm just intrigued in this group. I'm having a hard time kind of getting a gauge as far as value and like projections go, but certainly depending on what you think about the center, I guess position for the Vikings specifically with Ryan Kelly, his future in doubt. Is it Blake Randall? Is it, what's the game plan? I guess it does feel like it should be an option at some point just to kind of inject some more youth and talent in the interior.
Does Logan Jones running fast, I mean, is that enough to alleviate the concerns of his size?
No.
Because the undersized center, it's just such a stigma here in Minnesota. It makes me nervous.
It's not enough, but if you take the undersized center, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who can get those reach blocks on those outside and wide zone plays. So if you're willing to take a perceived lack of size and strength combination so you can maximize those runs, okay, then that's the direction you're going to take. And that's an okay direction, but you have to be okay with the negatives here. And the way that this run game has shifted towards more of a gap orientated run game, I don't see a guy like Logan Jones making a ton of sense. I think that they're going to want a little bit more of a stout player, somebody who can handle bull rushes, somebody who can displace rather than block on the move. So as much as Logan Jones is a good player, and I think he's the best Iowa O lineman in this class, no matter what NFL Network decided to do Jennings Dunker yesterday, man, they couldn't have done a better advertisement for him if they tried. But Jones, to me, just doesn't fit the direction that this run game is heading.
Yeah, I've got one more name, moving a little quicker on this. Charles Demings. Charles Demings out of Stephen F. Austin. He runs 4.41, 155 in the 10-yard, 42-inch vert, 11-foot broad, super athletic, 6'1", 190, lanky. But Inman, does the name Stephen F. Austin, does the small school corner freak you out? Because his numbers are phenomenal. I think the pedigree would be the question.
No, I don't think so. I mean, don't scout the helmet, right? I think we've learned that over the last, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Look at Toledo. I mean, all of a sudden Toledo's churning out some serious NFL talent defensive backs. I know, obviously SFA is maybe a little bit lower pedigree, a little bit lower competition, but no, scout the player. Obviously, I think at this juncture in the the draft process, I think as much as all we're doing is just digesting what's in front of us, which right now is the NFL Combine. Soon will be the pro days. I think the most important thing is go back to the tape. Tape is always number one. I think the Senior Bowl and these Shrine games, these All-Star games is probably number 2 in my book. The Combine stuff and the athletic testing is nice. It's information. We're in the information collecting stage. Give me everything you got. But at the end of the day, more times than not, typically it should be used as just kind of a tiebreaker, so to speak. I got 2-3 guys, kind of all got them graded the same. Let's check some of the measurables again. So, no, not opposed to them by any means, just because of the lower school competition. Going back to somebody like, who we talked about with Stooks at Arizona being 24 years old. I'm not sure. I'll have to check his age. Let's see. He is a senior, but again, just knowing what Brian Flores is looking for, especially with the smaller school, I'm not sure he's going to check enough boxes for Brian Flores specifically. Doesn't mean he's off their board by any means, and doesn't mean he couldn't be still a good NFL player. But I think there's some other guys that just makes more sense for Brian Flores, knowing what he looks for.
Yeah, you got to go watch the tape of him against Incarnate Word. Great backpedal.
What a ESPN classic. What a game.
You should watch that game because Jalen Waldhall is probably going to be a long-term special teamer in the league and maybe a potential wide receiver 3 for Incarnate Word. But
deep cut.
Yeah, Demings is a good player. I watched some Stephen F. Austin this year, mainly because I love watching small schools. They're just so much more fun to watch. But I remember hearing him on the practice field in Mobile saying that he was running 4.3s in practice and he was shooting for 4.2s. So I would be shocked if that Stephen F. Austin Pro Day wasn't like a 4.33, because these numbers for what he is on the field were pretty disappointing. I thought he was going to run way faster. And I think he can be a really good corner, probably like an early day 3 kind of guy, round 4, take the chance, develop him a little bit, because not only did he play well at Stephen F. Austin, played a lot of snaps at Stephen F. Austin. And that experience can really help adapt to a Brian Flores defense.
I delayed this long enough. We'll get to it right after the break. There were 6 losers identified in a USA Today article, and 3 of them were on our Prospect of the Day list. We'll get to that when we return. We are brought to you today by Indeed sponsored jobs, workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. So the pressure's on. You need the right hire. You got to get this right. You got to nail it. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. They help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, whether it's skills, experience, location. You're not just wishing that the right candidate stumbles across your post. You're not relying on luck. You're making your own luck with Indeed sponsored jobs. In the minute that we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. You need the right person to cut through the chaos. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get the job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Rolling on Viking squad show. Now, Inman, when you were gone, we identified 2 prospects of the day on your behalf. Alec nominated D'Angelo Pons, who is, he's everybody's prospect of the day, right? He's everybody's most interesting prospect. I went a little deeper cut. I identified R. Mason Thomas because I liked the 1-letter first name. Those 2.
That was your justification? That was your reasoning?
Hey, it got me to click. It's clickbait. It got me to click the name.
However you get there. Doesn't matter how you get there.
Hey,
I like it.
Yeah. The process justifies the results. I think that's what they say. So we add those 2 names to your list, Inman, which consisted of Grayson Halton, Emmett Johnson, Dylan Thieneman, Jake Slaughter, talked about him, Caden McDonald, and Mansur Delane. USA Today identified 3 of them as losers at the combine. Caden McDonald didn't test. They said he looked stiff in the drills and didn't test. Emmett Johnson ran the slowest 40 of the testers and benched the least, and he was kind of down the list. I think he did all the tests. He was down the list on most of them. And then my guy, R. Mason Thomas. He's undersized. He's 6'2", 240. He's like Eric Wilson sized, and he ran a 4.67. Needed to be faster. So the track record, not great. 3 out of 8 losers in the combine. Any concern specifically, Inman, about your 2 guys Johnson and McDonald.
Track record maybe for the combine. Jury's still out. I'll just say this. First, let's start with Caden McDonald, pure nose tackle from Ohio State, run-stuffing nose tackle, probably the best run-stuffing nose tackle in this class. When you're watching like these safeties blaze a 4-3-3, one day, and then all of a sudden you're watching this nose tackle do drills. Yeah, he looks a little unathletic. I will say, of all the position groups, I feel like defensive tackle probably getting the least out of, at least one of the positions you're getting the least out of from some of these testings. So I'm not really too worried about Caden McDonald, again, being on this loser list from USA Today, saying he looked a little stiff. Go back to the tape. Again, what you're kind of getting with him. The hope is if you use a late first, early second, wherever he ends up going, ideally somewhere down the road, you're getting a little bit of pass rushing upside as well, but you're getting the best, run stuffing nose tackle in the draft. So if that's what you're after, that's your guy. Emmett Johnson, his thing was never long speed. And that was, a quote unquote concern or a question mark. 4.56. I don't think it's like a historically bad combine, but, obviously not great. And again, we'll see his testing numbers at the pro day. Sometimes those improve as well. But, what makes him good was never his like home run, breakaway, open field, long speed. So it didn't really surprise me that much. Yes, would have loved to see him test a little bit better in 4.56, but I don't think it should be a big surprise if you're watching any of his tape. He's a dude who can make anybody miss in a phone booth. He gets downhill. He does make a lot of plays in the box and in space, but yes, when it gets to the second and third level, he's not your home run, Dalvin Cook type of hitter. So if anything, let's spin this the other way, Sam. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that this guy maybe drops a round or two and you're still getting a really good football player and a really good running back. Maybe get a little bit more value now, though.
Bring him home. Forno, thoughts on Emmett Johnson and or Caden McDonald?
I'm out on Caden McDonald before 49. I don't want a guy who's just a 2-down run stuffing nose tackle. I've seen people that I believe are smarter than me say that he's got pass rush upside. I watched the tape multiple times. I didn't see it other than he's a Jonathan Bullard that can just push the pocket. And to me, unless you are going to be Vince Wilfork, I just don't see that kind of value in the first round. I want a little bit more because I can get a good run stuffer in round 3 and Tim Keene in the 3rd from Alabama. And I can feel really comfortable about that role being filled without having to spend first round draft capital on it. As far as Johnson, I don't really have a good read on him yet. I feel like he's a little bit more of a gap scheme kind of guy, which feels like the direction O'Connell's taking his run game in a similar vein to how McVay has done so with the Rams. But there are just other backs that I like more than him at this point. If you could somehow land Jonah Coleman, like that would be my dream because I think he feels to me like Aaron Jones plus 20 pounds, like same kind of speed, same kind of dynamic back and good out of the backfield. But he's also built like a bowling ball, 5'9", 229 pounds. I don't think Johnson would be a bad pick. If it feels like to me, the Vikings are going to pursue free agency for running back and then fortify it later on in the draft. So I wonder if Johnson would be completely out of their range at that point.
Can I just throw out just one other random dude here?
Love random dudes.
Just for winners, I guess, or maybe a guy that I just feel like maybe makes a little bit of sense for the Vikings. Not a first-round guy. By the way, we didn't really touch on Thieneman again. I mean, we obviously touched on him during Prospect of the Day, but he may be one of the biggest winners, I feel like, of anybody at the time. When you're talking about just kind of these border first-round guys that now have cemented themselves in the first round, and now as the draft gets closer and closer, now we're starting to second guess, can we even get him at 18? But he was fantastic, and not just, testing 4.35. Are you kidding me? But not just the testing, but everything I heard. And yeah, I mean, some of this is going off any, major outlet that anybody else can go get, like the Todd McShays and stuff like that. But apparently he absolutely crushed the whiteboard process as well. I mean, the verbiage, the play recalls, the X's and O's, everything that I heard that kind of from off the field stuff, once they got in the interviews and dissecting defenses and talking to coaches, sounds like he just ripped it up. So it's going to be a war between, Caleb Downs, clearly the first safety, but it's going to be a war between Dylan Thieneman and Emmanuel McNeil Warren from Toledo, who that second safety is. They both bring a lot of positives to the table. Kind of pick your flavor. But there's a tight end. I'm trying to pull him up here. I just want to make sure I got his numbers here. There's a tight end. 4-0, you mentioned Sadiq, crushed it. Stowers from Vandy, crushed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think those guys are kind of, tight end wide receiver hybrids, which in today's pass happy league, hey, there's a spot for those guys. Who's kidding who? I'm kind of more intrigued by a guy like Sam Roush from Stanford, because this dude, he's a monster. Grew up playing rugby, but 6'6", 270 pounds coming out as a rookie. More your traditional kind of inline wide tight end, which I'm trying to put myself in KOC shoes. I'm sure KOC would really love to have, a guy like this in his arsenal behind Hawkinson, behind Oliver, start developing the next guy in line, so to speak. And he's kind of, depending on who you ask, he's for sure one of the best blocking tight ends, but he may be the best blocking tight end, in this draft class. And again, showed up to the combine for his size, tested off the charts. 4.7. People are going to go, Kenyon Sadiq ran, sub 4.4. This guy ran a 4.7. 270 pounds, bro. Like weight adjusted. You got to keep that stuff in mind. 270, a 4.7 at 270 is fantastic. Great vertical. Great broad jump, showing off that lower body explosion, 25 bench reps, a 10-inch hands. He's just a monster, man. He's just a huge dude. And I know we get enamored this week during, Indy and the Combine with these freak athletes like Sadiq. But when it comes to, again, just trying to put myself in KOC's shoes, I feel like this is a guy he's probably going to circle in, I don't know, round 4, round 5. But he's probably wants to get another tight end and get some youth in the building with this big size, blocking skills, and athleticism behind the two that you already got. So, I started, obviously I watched the testing, went back and watched a little bit of tape, just kind of got my broad overview, just general analysis. Started thinking about a souped up Rhett Ellison, 4th round pick from USC all those years ago. Never was the tight end one, but like this just rocks. It's a good draft pick, man. You got 5-6 rock solid years out of a tight end too. I think Sam Roush from Stanford, again, a little bit more vanilla, not the freak pass catching athlete, but I think he makes a ton of sense for what KOC wants to do in those 12 personnel kind of 2 tight end sets.
There's only one concern I have with Roush: 30 and 5/8 inch arms,
small arms, man. What's up with that?
It's T-Rex style.
Weird.
You got to look at the tape and see how much that actually impacts his blocking.
For sure.
Because you're gonna go against edge rushers with 34-inch arms, and that can be debilitating. Like, you don't think 3 inches is a lot, but it's a ton when you're trying to get into somebody's chest. And that's concerning to me off the jump, but the rest of it, you nailed it, Eamon.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's really impressive tape, but I would want to find that intricacy to see if that's a potential debilitating factor.
Fair point.
In his
more than fair
NFL.
point. Yeah, for sure. Makes sense.
Inman, you want to take a 60-second victory lap on Grayson Halton? Holy crap.
Good player.
Yeah. 4-0 mentioned it at the top, with McDonald that, first of all, the defensive tackle class isn't like fantastic this year. No, like Jordan Davis is, right? No blue chip monsters. Peter Woods is up there, but he's got some question marks. Caleb Banks from Florida, but you start to get in around 2, 3, and 4, and that's the bread and butter. That is the glue of every NFL roster. You got to hit on your 1st round pick first and foremost, but you got to start nailing at least a couple of those, day 2s and early day 3s, and you're looking for value. Grayson Halton, man, needs a little bit more sand in the pants, right? Not a true anchor type dude, but talk about some burst and some get off and a dude who just knifes in the backfield. He's a lot of fun for sure, and pending on how they want to kind of attack this defensive line group, now that we know Hargraves is probably gone, probably going to keep Allen, but then what? Like, what's next? Draft or free agency? I like Grayson Halton a lot for any team, but especially for the Vikings. He would be a lot of fun next to a guy like Jalen Redmond.
From the Combine, we move to free agency. Vikings need a CB3. Who can they sign? We discuss next. We're brought to you today by Game Time. We live in a world where you can stream anything. You can order food in minutes. We carry supercomputers in our pockets. And somehow buying tickets to a live game, it still feels complicated. There's hidden fees, jumping prices. There's a lot of steps, and it can be stressful. There's got to be a better way, and Game Time delivers that to you with the Game Time app, whether it's concerts, comedy, NFL games. We got NHL and NBA right here in town. So you jump in the app, check out the upcoming games in your market. Couple of clicks, you can see very easily with their format where the best deals are in the arena. They've got zone deals where you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats for extra savings. It's all in pricing, no surprises. 2 taps, get great seats locked in. Fast, easy, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. All right, the Jeff Okudah experience was, well, about exactly as we expected, and the Vikings will be looking for a new CB3 in free agency. Our free agency previews roll right on. Forno will give you the first crack. You know, we're set with Murphy, set with Isaiah Rodgers, and the pipeline is bare. The cupboard is bare. There is not there's no one coming from, you know, last year's draft to save you. So who would you like to add to this room, and someone that can play, you know, 300, 400 snaps?
See, I don't think the Isaiah Rodgers position is set. He couldn't tackle anything last year. And in this defense, with how they like to play and how aggressive they are, you have to be able to tackle in the back end. If you can't, that can turn a 5-yard play into a 40-yard play really quickly. So not being able to do that could be an eliminating factor for him to be a starter on this team long term. If I were to pick one guy who I'd want them to target money outside, I'd want to go for Reek Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. 6'4", 200 pounds, ran in the 4.2s at the combine, and has been a little bit inconsistent as far as man coverage is concerned, and you can kind of bait him a little bit, but he does have recovery speed and length to be able to compensate for it because he's 6'4". Where he really succeeds is being able to play an off zone and click and closing forward. And that's the kind of thing that you're going to ask him to do in Minnesota. You're going to ask him to play a lot of drop zones and then attack the football. He's a good tackler. He's got that size, and he's able to do a lot of the little intricate things that you'll be able to ask him to do. Plus, with how Brian Flores likes to have guys on the line of scrimmage and then they end up going to deep halves or deep thirds, Woolen has the athleticism and speed to be able to accomplish that, therefore making your back end more dynamic with some of those disguised looks. It might take $15 to $20 million a year to bring him in, depending on what his market looks like. But if there's an ideal candidate to really emphasize securing the back end, it's Reek Woolen for me.
So you're splashing. That's your number one at that money. That's your number one free agent priority.
If you are going to really make cornerback a focus and you want to improve that room so you can alleviate some of the pressure off of your pressure packages and maybe blitz even less, yeah, I would put a lot of money into Woolen.
Sam, you say that like he's going to break the bank. Do we have some PFF projections or anything? Just a ballpark? Because I got no. I'm all on the Woolen train. I've been on the Woolen train since it came out of UTSA. 15? Okay.
15 mil per year.
I think, you know, with cornerbacks, you start with your number one. Who's your number one? What does he do well? Where does he fit the best? Byron Murphy, I think the question is, do you want to keep him solely as your boundary outside corner number one dude, or do you think he kind of presents more value as your nickel corner when you got 3, you know, wide receivers out there that you got to cover? And I'm not sure the answer to that. I just think that kind of, for me, that kind of depends on who I'm going to go kind of target with cornerbacks 2 and 3. Obviously, again, to you guys' conversation, 2 right now, Isaiah Rodgers definitely could be upgraded at some point. So, you know, if you do like him outside more at the boundary, how about a guy like Mike Hilton, who he was hurt last year, but before that, you know, teaming up with Lou Anarumo and Cincy, who he eventually followed to Indianapolis but got hurt. He was known as like one of the better slot corners in the entire league. A great run defender, super disruptive. In fact, he had like a 3-4 year stretch from like 2020, maybe 2021 to 2024, where he was just fantastic. It was just people kind of still sleeping on that nickel kind of inside corner position at the time. But Mike Hilton, definitely an option. I just remember him from 2 years ago when he was a free agent. Again, maybe you get a little bit more value because he was hurt last year. if you want to move Byron Murphy more on the inside, if you think that's where he's best and, you're going to maximize his skill set, I'm all for Tariq Woolen. Yes, a little bit more of a numbers game. Now we're talking about, all right, do we got to restructure guys like Justin Jefferson and Brian O'Neill, which they may do anyways to free up some money. But, if they only get one splash, I'm not disappointed at all if the splash is a guy like Tariq Woolen. How about one more I'll just throw out? Just because of the age, he's got the games under his belt. He knows what he's doing. Not like this big household name, but every time I look at all the numbers and stats, PFF grades, everything else, he's just been solid. Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay, and maybe he ends up going back to Tampa, but the past couple of years, I don't think he's ever had a PFF passing grade, or I should say coverage grade, lower than like 70. So he's just been kind of this high floor type of dude. And again, I know Flores, he wants those high floor type of dudes who have just seen and played in a lot of games, have a lot of experience under their belt. Jamel Dean, never thought he would be on maybe a target list, but I'm starting to think he maybe checks some boxes for Brian Flores as well.
Yeah, Dean, certainly splashy.
You think he's 15, 16 mil too?
I don't think so. What's interesting about Dean is the numbers look good, but that fan base was ready to run him out of Tampa with pitchforks. Like, they don't like the guy.
Was this last year? Like at the end of 2025, you're saying?
He took a massive pay cut last year, and then they voided out the rest of his deal, so then he would hit the free agent market this year. Like, I'm not convinced that he's a guy I would want to give a lot of money to. I'd have to do a lot of film research.
I wonder what happened. 46.9 passer rating on throws into his coverage. And I'm with you, dude. I'm pleading the fifth here. Like, I'm just looking at, best available. Just knowing, again, his game experience and just seeing some of these numbers. But you're right. Some of these numbers definitely do not always tell the story. Going off, people closer to the Bucks organization and hearing some of that word of mouth, always good to, collect information there too. So, I'm with you. On paper, it looks kind of enticing, but would definitely want to do some more research too.
Yeah. I think it comes down to how much do they have resource wise to devote to this? And are they trying to come up with a solution for beyond 2026, or is it a 1-year Band-Aid? Last year, Moreau played 11 games and Okudah played 6. Between the two of them, 291 snaps. They play their safeties everywhere. They don't play a lot of CB3. So I'm okay going cheap if it's just for 1 year. I think that you can pay, and Mike Hilton, certainly an option. If I'm Brzezinski, I might stay away from the guy coming off injury just because of the perception, just because of what happened with the predecessor. That makes me a little nervous. Same with the Asante Samuel Jr. card, right? Coming off surgery and missed most of the season. Chidobe Awuzie would be a very cheap veteran option. He had a good year in Baltimore. He's had a good career. I would not be scared of that. And if you want someone a little younger, coming off a breakout season in Jacksonville, Monteric Brown. Most people probably have never heard the name because he's buried in Jacksonville. That could be another affordable option for a 27-year-old corner that's on the rise.
He was a full-time start. He was on the field almost every play for them.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah. He was legitimately good. No one's heard of him.
Yeah, to your point too, Sam, you mentioned Fabian Moreau. Over 1,000 snaps last year. He's set to be a free agent. Correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty sure he's set to be a free agent as well.
Wait, so Fabian?
Is he not?
Oh, no, he's a free agent. He didn't play 1,000 snaps. He played like 100 and change. Our guy, Fabian?
Yeah.
Fabian played 198 snaps.
Man, it sure felt like more than that.
Let me just throw out one other guy. Just would be ironic, would be pretty funny. Pitchfork Nation might come out. I don't know if the fans will be happy about this at all. Nahshon Wright, bring him back home. Are you kidding me? Like, what? For the Vikings, who obviously went through such a kind of a disaster behind the scenes with the cornerback room, with the injuries and everything else. Again, you're starting Fabian Moreau. To watch Nahshon Wright, not like he's Darrell Revis Island or anything, but just be a capable, competent cornerback in the NFL, and do it against the Vikings too, by the way. That one stung quite a bit, but I know he's a free agent as well.
Yep, no doubt.
I got one more to throw out there. What about Cam Taylor-Britt of the Bengals? He was a former second-round pick, multi-year starter. I think he had some injury issues over the past couple of years, but he was able to like still play a decent amount of football. You can trust him in man coverage. He's got decent size, and being that he's got decent size and tackling ability, that might be somebody that you're willing to put on the outside, because I still have reservations about this team actually wanting to prioritize slot corner with how they feel about Byron Murphy Jr. I'm very curious if they would prioritize somebody who can play outside so they can continue to kick him inside instead of signing somebody like a Mike Hilton or a Cordell Flott, who I've heard is going to make a bunch of money this offseason.
Good stuff, Forno. Hour flew by. Appreciate you joining us. He's at The Real Forno on X, and he's a Vikings beat writer at A to Z Sports. Luke Inman, back from the dead. Good to have you back, my friend. He's at Luke_Spinman. He is our draft guru, and he'll be with us all throughout these next couple of months leading up to the draft. We got free agency starting next week. This is an exciting time for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll be back on Thursday on the Vikings Squad Show. Appreciate you watching, listening, commenting, and subscribing, and we will talk to you next time.